Hello, and welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina. My next conversation is with my girlfriend, Chris Wissmann. We have had children together. We've had road trips. She's going to talk about that. We have just lived life together. And we are not paid actors, but we are friends that love each other, and we are sharing our life and our story in hopes of encouraging someone else along this way. I am sorry for the person that you have lost that has driven you to this conversation, but I'm glad that you found us. And I thank you for being now part of our hood and our community. Let's get into the conversation now.
Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, and welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina. My guest today is my girlfriend, Chris. So, let's see what she's going to say.
Yeah, let's.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
How about you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I am Chris. I am a wife and a mother. I enjoy friendships. I need more questions.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
I like to cook.
Now what about that belly
wash?
What is in that?
That is grape juice, like grape concentrate, the frozen stuff.
Okay.
A package of Kool-Aid. You could get grape or tropical punch. And
grape.
So prepare the Kool-Aid
Okay.
like you would normally, but with less sugar. And then put the grape juice concentrate in there with the appropriate amount of water, stir it up, and it's belly wash from Wisconsin. That's what Mark's mom and grandmother would fix for the people who were helping them with their harvest and stuff on the farm.
It seemed like way more complicated than that.
Oh, no. Well, that's good. It should be. Oh, so hard.
Right.
So hard.
And your baking skills that you're underestimating over here.
Well, thank you. I am not an elaborate baker. I will only bake easy things.
Which are those?
Which what?
Which are?
Brownies, pies, cakes.
And plenty of brownies
torts.
And pies and
yeah,
cakes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we like to eat.
Yes.
A whole lot
Right.
of sweet stuff.
Yeah. So, Chris, how did we meet?
You met my husband first.
Okay, I'm gonna drink my tea while she tell this story.
You better drink your tea. So my husband was a non-traditional student at CNU. We moved from farming back to Virginia so he could go to school.
And I'm gonna say CNU is Christopher Newport College.
Before it became a university.
Yes, it was.
So that was in...
Long time ago.
Okay. And exactly. And I was working and Mark was in school full time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so busy meeting all these people, but they all had female names. And he told me he was going to be meeting Tina to play racquetball with her. And I'm like...
At what time?
Well, on Saturdays is how it came to me.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay.
But what time on Saturday?
Tina? Well, the time became important because it was 6:30 in the morning.
Just saying.
Who would get out of bed to play racquetball at 6:30 in the morning besides my husband, and especially a female? I didn't know any girls or women who would get out of bed to do that. Not anybody in their right mind.
And they were supposed to be married.
Well, that's what he finally told me. I'm like, why is she getting up? Why are you playing racquetball with her? Well, because she likes to play racquetball. Well, she married? I mean, why? What does she do on Saturdays? Well, her husband likes to sleep in like you do. And I'm like,
oh, ouch.
Yeah. So I did. They played a lot, and I didn't still know who she was. So I got up early one morning on Saturday.
So one Saturday morning
to meet her. I thought you were going to drink your tea.
And this was way before cell phones. Just so.
Oh yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So I got up early because I had not met her. He hadn't made any effort for me to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home a different day and there was a blonde in my house. He was tutoring. And so now he's meeting Tina to play racquetball.
Who was the blonde?
Lori.
Okay, Lori, just saying.
And so, yeah, I was like, I had no suspicion that he was being unfaithful, but I also was not comfortable that all his friends at college were girls. I didn't hear a men's name anywhere. And he even got a welcome letter from Christy. And I'm like, this is too many. Yeah, I'm like,
oh, hey,
Christy, Lori, Tina. I'm like, okay, I got to meet her.
All 4-letter names, too. Oh, okay, Go ahead.
So anyway, so I met Tina and I felt better.
Hold on. Let's just be clear. Whatever was going on this day, she was making sure Mark was not coming downstairs because I drove to their apartment complex and Mark would normally come down. So before cell phones, I could not honk my horn like at 6 o'clock in the morning because the whole apartment complex will wake up. So I'm like, okay, where's this dude at? And it's like, man, if he did not get up, I'm gonna be so upset. So I go upstairs and I knock on the door and she says, hello. And I was like, hey. I was like, is Mark here? She's like, and who are you? I was like, oh, we about to have a whole situation. I just want to play racquetball. And so she starts drilling me, asking me all these questions. I was like, I don't even know if I like playing racquetball with him that much. It's like, this could be over.
It might not be worth it.
Exactly. But after a while, Chris and I became more friends and Mark became kind of boring. Yes, her husband's name is Mark, just like my late husband. And both of our birthdays are in May and both of our husband's birthdays was in June.
A day apart.
Literally a day apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to let Chris share about a couple of life adventures that I took her on.
Oh, my. So I got to meet Tina because Mark liked racquetball, and she was fun. And I didn't realize how intense or passionate she was. And I have since thoroughly enjoyed that. But it was a little overwhelming and scary at first because I was making jewelry. I was making earrings. We didn't have any money. We were still in school.
They were out of soap.
Yeah, they were buttons. So you could get a button and either peel off or scratch off, or somehow we tweaked off the back of it, and you could.
We wound up getting a soldering gun and all sorts of stuff.
All kinds of stuff. And then we made the dangle ones with the hoops. And I'm like, I'm making these. Would you like a pair? Like a pair? We could sell these. Like. How long does it take you to make these? How much do they cost? Blah, 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 blah. We could do a craft show. And I'm like, oh, I was just asking you if you wanted a pair of earrings. That's all. Like,
I did say yes that I wanted earrings.
Yeah. So that was, yeah.
But we did some craft shows.
Yeah. And you even bought a stamp that said, and so it was Christina's.
Christina's Arts and Crafts.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was just
overwhelming.
The idea was overwhelming.
Yes.
And it's something I would have never done without your assistance and nudging. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'll get in line behind you. You go first.
But it was fun. I never made jewelry or did anything like that. And so I was an accounting major in my undergrad. So I started calculating what we could do. And we were all like poor at that point in time. So it was like, what's the return on investment if you buy the buttons and then you saw those? And I, to this day, still have some of those earrings. I should have worn a pair.
I never even thought about that. I forgot about that. I was thinking of the road trip.
Okay. Oh, but yeah, about that.
We had children, small children. So Mark was an electrician and traveled to make money for his family.
Her Mark.
And my Mark was from Wisconsin, and her Mark happened to be working in Illinois or Chicago.
It was Chicago.
It was in Chicago.
And but no. He was in
where was he?
Wisconsin, but I went to stay with my family and then went back to spend time with him.
He was in Wisconsin?
Yeah. He was.
I don't think I even remember.
No, Indiana, but he was in the area.
Okay, it was close. We needed to go. You wanted to go.
See him.
Yes.
Badly.
And
it had been a minute, y'all.
That's one of the things I appreciate about you and your commitment or passion for other people's marriages.
It is important.
It is important. Anyway, so that was manifesting itself all over the place. And you asked me, you were going to take a road trip. Catherine was a baby.
Oh my gosh, when I say baby, like, I don't even know if she was one. Like, they were both
in
like
the car seat.
In the car seat. This is when it still turned backwards because she couldn't face forward yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Oh, here we go.
And We had been pretty good friends. I mean, we spent a lot of time together by then. And so Tina didn't want to have to drive out by herself, and she offered for me and Hannah and Bethany to ride. I had 2 little ones with her, and then I could stay at my sister-in-law's. She could be with her family. Everybody would be happy. And that's what we did.
And that's when that road trip started when we lived here in Virginia the first time.
Right.
So we were at the house out in Gloucester, and Chris lived nearby. And I had a Jeep Cherokee. I want to say Sport or Grand. It was my college graduation gift to myself. So we loaded up the Jeep, no cell phones at this point in time. And we are headed now from Virginia, Gloucester, all the way to Chicago, Illinois. 2 women, 3 babies, and we hit the road.
Yes, we did. And Tina she was a good driver. I wasn't.
I was motivated. I was planning to drive all night long so I could see Mark at the end of that trip.
Yeah, and we talked about possibly staying somewhere if we needed to, and I was thinking we might need to, and Tina, I think that was like,
no.
Yeah, we weren't going to need to. She just hadn't told me we weren't going to need to yet.
I mean, I got her in the car just like I got her in the seat. Just saying.
Yes, I'll get in line behind her. She can go first. So do you want the whole story?
Oh, yes, the whole story.
So we were in the car. We were headed to West Virginia. We weren't even there yet.
Right.
Maybe we were in West Virginia, but
we
had
were
been
headed
making
to Chicago, but we only got to West Virginia.
Yes, we'd been making fun of West Virginia, I think.
Yes,
and
we never wanted to have to stop here. This is not where we want to go. We wanted to keep going because one, if we're driving long distance, we didn't even get far if we just made it that far.
Right. I was in the back seat with Catherine, and I don't know how we had. I don't know.
We were sitting, and you were turning around to open the kids.
How could I see your face?
Bethany or Hannah was next to her and then started talking and telling you.
Okay. I don't remember all that. It was traumatizing, but.
So Chris was back to the whole thriftiness of life. Chris was very, very good at just figuring out how to make things. So she had made some homemade wipes because buying wipes from the store was too expensive. She was a stay-at-home mom working.
2 kids.
2 kids. She was working part-time. Mark is in school, so trying to figure out how to make things work. We're driving West Virginia, and
Catherine's hungry.
And I think we started out first by giving her some peanut butter crackers. Mm-hmm. And then
I gave them to her while you were driving.
Chris gave her the poison, the peanut butter crackers. And then she wiped her face, and I'm driving, and she goes, "Has Catherine ever had peanut butter before?" And I was like, "I don't know." She goes, "You think?"
Remember, I know that she's passionate and intense and in a hurry. And I'm trying to figure out how to say things carefully, not to cause a panic, but I am in full-blown panic mode inside because of what I'm thinking.
And so she says, "So you don't know if she's allergic to peanut butter?" And then she starts naming products. She's like, "Has she allergic?" I said, "What are you asking me all these questions for?" Because now she's going over the products that's in the wipes. And I'm like, "Chris, what is going on?" "I think that she's allergic." I was like, okay. And we just happened to see a hospital sign. It was just within close proximity.
That or we stopped at that toll. We had to stop at a toll booth.
And then they told us that the hospital was so far up. We could stay on the same highway that we were on. And the toll was there. We pull off. I don't even remember what happened in the hospital.
I'd let you off. You were driving. You pulled up to the ER. You got out with Catherine. I went and parked someplace and came back and found you. Okay. And I think it was shortly after that they took you back. And I don't know if we really found out she was allergic to anything, but they gave us something for the rash, but they couldn't pinpoint what it is. But they said, "Don't do that no more." Don't do that no more. And they didn't think it was a peanut allergy that was going to be life-threatening. Right. Which is, yeah. That was one part. So now we're in West Virginia. And it's too far to drive. We're tired, so we're past West Virginia. Really? No, never mind. Go ahead. No, I don't know. No, I was in a different spot of the trip. Oh, you talking about? So we find some place to stay. Chris, we get something to eat probably, but this is the part that Chris remembers the most. So I'll let her take it from here. So it's late. We got a long drive ahead of us, and we're putting our kids to bed. And I have to, Bethany and Catherine are same months apart. Yeah, September and November. Yep. And Hannah was 2.5 years old, maybe.
Right.
Tina tells Catherine, okay, honey, mommy's got to go to sleep now. And we're going to get up in the morning at, I think it was like 8 o'clock. So you go have a good sleep, kissed her, cuddled her, hugged her, changed her, did everything you do to put her to bed. And she went right to sleep. And I was like, what in the world? Yeah, right, 8 o'clock. Okay. I'm like not saying any of this. I'm just observing. This is her first baby. This is my second.
She obviously knows more than me.
Well, no, at this point I didn't because Hannah was very easy.
Okay.
And as a baby and still was. But Bethany, I couldn't do anything to make her happy.
Okay.
And she was fussy and fussy. And I'm thinking, well, there's no way Catherine, Tina, or I are going to sleep through this. And she fussed and fussed. And finally she went to sleep. The next morning, Catherine wakes up at 8 o'clock or whatever it was that you told her.
You said that you woke up early and you were watching and waiting and looking.
And I was like she was on a timer. Not a peep in the night.
Nothing.
Woke up, and maybe she was afraid of me by that time. I don't know.
But she woke up at 8 o'clock.
Yes, perfect. Just perfect child. I was like, this is my second. I don't know what I'm doing. First baby, let's go to sleep now. Wake up at 8. And that's what she did.
She did. But so now we're on the road trip. Thank you, Catherine, for sleeping in. And we are some ridiculous amount away from the location. And you keep asking me
It's dark. The kids are sleeping. It's nighttime. So it's time to go to bed.
And it's these windy roads and stuff like this. And I can't remember how far it was.
Well, we got off the interstate to get something to drink.
7-Eleven, we had to get a Slurpee.
And
sugar up.
There was nothing there. It was like all flat lands. Mm-hmm. And we pulled in it was in the middle of the night.
It was.
And there you couldn't see anybody or anything anywhere. Like,
and no cell
you
phones.
went in and I stayed in the car with the kids and I'm like, well, if she doesn't come back out.
Because we're having maps and trying to follow the directions and trying to get a perspective. This is before GPS, put it on your car, no ETA. We're literally out there just doing it. And
you went in to get a drink and find out how much further it was. And then we were going to decide if we're going to keep going, if it was too far to keep going or stay there. And you came back out like, it's only half an hour away. Blah, blah, blah. It wasn't. That wasn't the... But you acted like it was only half an hour away and it was hundreds of miles yet.
It was another 5 or 6 hours.
Yes.
It was.
But you couldn't tell it by her face. It was like, we'll be there in just a little bit. I'm like...
Did we keep driving or did
Yes, we did. Us and Tracy Chapman.
Yes. I love me some Tracy Chapman. She had us on that road. I was just playing it because literally there was a tape in the car. So we were just hitting it rewind and rewind. So there was a lot of Tracy Chapman.
There was a lot of
Tracy And you were still my friend.
Yes. Yes, I am.
We have been friends for a long time.
Over 30 years.
Really?
Is it over 30? Did I know you before you had Hannah? She was born in the apartment that you played racquetball in. I bet it is.
Hannah's 30?
She'll be 30 in March.
Sorry, telling your business, Hannah. Wow. Okay, so in that, we have lived a lot of life together.
Yeah.
What are some things?
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Besides those kind of crazy things, what are some other things you remember?
I remember meeting your big, scary dog.
Bandit?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And Mark's little red car.
Oh, that Fiero, yes.
I remember having dinner at your apartment in Candlewood.
Okay.
I remember, do we have Bible study over there once or twice?
We may have because InterVarsity Christian Fellowship used to go to different places. So I could see that happening.
I remember staining trim work in Gloucester.
Oh, at the house gloss in Gloucester. Yeah, when we were moving into that.
I remember unpacking your kitchen in Gloucester when you weren't there.
Oh, yes.
I remember girls' breakfast.
Girlfriend's breakfast.
In Gloucester. I remember you calling me when you were sick.
Oh, I couldn't breathe that day. Yes. Catherine was, I want to say about 2. Well, she had to be 2, 1.5 to 2. And I called Chris and I go, hey, what are you doing? She's like, what are you doing? I don't think I can breathe really well. And she was like, okay. And I was like...
And you were in Gloucester and I was in Newport News.
Yes.
It was like 20, I don't remember.
It wasn't far.
But it wasn't close either.
Right.
There was a bridge.
Yes.
That could open.
Right. And
anyway.
So, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
No. So, from what I remember, Chris got to my house really quickly. Was the ambulance there too?
Why? I don't remember.
The ambulance came and took me to the hospital. I really could not breathe. And they wanted to give me tests for different stuff. And I said, I don't know if I can take those tests. And so then Mark comes into the room and people are waiting outside. And I said, well, I could be pregnant. So then all my friends start making jokes. So you went to the hospital and then you got knocked up by Mark. How did that happen? And then I had this, my hair wasn't combed. So I grabbed the first thing I could, which was this skull cap that had lint on it everywhere. And everybody that came in the room enjoyed making fun of that. So I could not take the test because I was pregnant. I was pregnant with Alexander.
I don't remember that part.
Yep, I was, because they wanted to do a lot of stuff and give me steroids. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant. But we didn't tell anybody yet. But when we were in the hospital, I was like, yeah, and I'm pregnant.
That part. Wow.
Yes. So
I remember when Alex was born and Catherine had been the perfect child.
Up until then?
Perfect child. She
was
was
there?
still the perfect child. No, you were asking me for friendship memories. I just remember when Alex was a baby, he was so fussy and Catherine had been the perfect child.
Oh, no, I was thinking that we left Catherine with you when we went to go have.
You did?
Yeah,
I forgot about that
That's the part I thought you were talking about. I remember almost ripping your counter off when those contractions were coming too. We dropped Catherine off with Mark and Chris. And oh my gosh, those contractions, I thought I was going to rip the counter off. And then Mark picked them up and they were all dressed alike and everything. But I'm going to let you tell that part about what I did to Alex.
That had made me think of another thing, but I forgot it. Catherine had been the perfect child. She was an easy baby. And Alex ended up not being an easy baby. And you were really rattled because you were doing everything right, everything you could think of. And I couldn't think of anything to tell you different. And I was like, well, that's what a second child is like. And it finally dawned on you. I don't remember how.
I was on the phone talking to you and I was like, he just won't stop crying. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And you said, what are you eating? I said, I'm just eating the same thing. And I was eating an atomic fireball and I was nursing. So the baby was getting fire milk.
Regularly because you were
I was trying to stay awake. I was working at night, doing different stuff. I stopped eating atomic fireballs and Alex was fine.
Yep, turned into the perfect child too. So she had motherhood down. I struggled with it.
Now, thinking of struggling.
Okay.
So help me remember, there are people in your life that have passed and they have impacted you a lot. And what has been the people and the order and how that's gone for you?
So directly, my dad passed in 2009. My brother passed in 2017.
Okay.
And my mom just passed
recently.
Yeah, in December. My dad was sick for a while. We didn't really know what was wrong, and the doctors kept saying, it's this, and it just didn't seem to fit. But my mom and my dad were both satisfied with those answers, and no matter how we pushed, they wouldn't pursue anything different. And so he ended up getting diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in October, either very late September or October.
Okay.
And I remember him telling us, he had brought my brother and I in and sat us down and said, this is what's going on. I've opted not to do anything.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of hope given if, just he would be miserable a little longer.
Okay.
And so he died November 5th.
What year again?
2009.
2009.
So it was like a little over a month.
So now your mom's a widow.
Yeah, now my mom's a widow. My brother's had chronic health issues up until this time, and my dad was his very best friend, and that really hit him hard. And one of the things I remember for my mom was the idea that you could survive your spouse dying. They had just celebrated their 50th anniversary a couple years before that. We had a big shindig for them.
Wow.
And they were really crazy about each other. You remind me a little bit your relationship with Mark. They did everything together. I don't think you guys did, but the intimacy and the closeness and the desire, the go to Chicago to be with them in the middle of the night and not stop, that was them. And so watching her navigate what it looked like to be without him was fascinating is not the right word, amazing and unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. I just remember being so struck with how you could survive when part of your body just kind of dies off.
So when you say watch, what type of conversations did you have with your mom about that? Or was it more from the outside looking in?
It was more from the outside looking in.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time there. The last week before he passed, I kind of lived there.
Oh, okay.
And watching them say goodbye to each other frequently because, he was dying and it was going to be soon. They knew it. So each time she would go to bed at night.
That could have been the last.
That could have been the last goodbye.
You in the house, were you thinking that same thing? Like this could be the last time to see my dad?
I did.
Or were you thinking more of your mom? Where were your interests at?
I feel like it was both. My dad was coherent until the last day or two. So he had an opportunity to say whatever he wanted to say to anybody. And we all gathered around. So he had grandkids by that time and my brother was married.
Okay.
So both our families were with him several times.
Okay.
And that was a really sweet and tender thing that my mom didn't. We didn't have that with my mom. And didn't have it with my brother necessarily. He was not an outspoken person, and my dad just was demonstrative. He made a point to say...
He's intentional.
He was intentional.
Was your dad always very vocal?
No.
Really?
No. He was...
Okay.
About important things, yes, but not very vocal. He would be quiet and not frequent.
Okay. So, but this was important enough for him to start preparing you to start seeing what this needs to look like.
And the last things that you would remember he said to you were significant.
How did your dad's passing impact and change your life?
I remember being glad that I was there. I journaled through that experience. And when my mom was dying, I had gone back and looked through that, and it was a very different experience. With my dad, I felt kind of more aware, more in the moment.
Okay.
More in the moment. And like I was absorbing all of that and processing it.
But you were from the outside looking in at that situation. So you had more time to think and to do that, you were saying.
So, yeah, it was not a horrific thing. It was it just seemed like a very natural
Okay, like thing. He was getting older and this is how life was going.
Yeah, and he's decided this is not something he wants to treat.
Okay.
I respected his decision.
Okay. So. Now you said that was different. So now, what year did Billy pass, your brother?
2017.
How was that different for you?
My brother, our relationship was different, so that brings a different dynamic to someone passing. And being the older sister and the only sibling.
Right.
And it was different also because I felt like I was, after my dad passed, my brother's health got worse. And so I was trying to help my mom, who was trying to help my brother's wife take care of him. So so I feel like I had a different role. With my dad, I was his daughter the whole time. With my brother, I was his sister. I was my mom's helper. And I was my sister-in-law's helper.
And you were a caregiver for your brother a lot of times, too.
Well, not really.
Oh, really? Okay.
Lisa, she really did most of that. I would go with her to appointments. I was
that's why I remember you being part of that. Being part of that caregiving circle.
Right. I was more of a support for her than doing the direct care. My mom did some of the direct care. I was the support team.
Okay.
More than anything. And so he died his health deteriorated pretty significantly, and his actual death, he was on hospice. I don't think he even made a whole week.
And it was pretty hard.
Yeah, it was an ugly death.
Mhm.
He didn't, that we could tell, suffer, but his body deteriorated in ways that
Yeah.
were awful. And thankfully, we don't think he was aware of that.
Oh, wow.
But
That's
it was
good.
hard to process that part of the whole situation. You're losing somebody, and then when they go in a way that is kind of disturbing, that adds a whole different level to processing.
It does. Because I think maybe in our mind, we kind of want death to be something that kind of...
It's tidy.
Yes, it's tidy.
It's not painful.
Someone gives us a phone call that it's happened, and we don't have to experience that impact directly. We want to kind of be removed a little bit. To be there right when someone is transitioning from this world is difficult. Now, you did caregiving for elderly people or
Yeah.
other different things like that. So that wasn't with your family, wasn't the first time you having to deal with that, but that was the first time that was personal to that degree. Other people you cared for. I don't recall you saying other people cared for passed while you were there, but they passed knowing that you had maybe seen them just recently.
So I was doing elderly care, and
Elderly care.
the first lady that I worked for, I did get to be present with her family. She was in assisted living, and they knew that it was going to happen. They knew she would die soon,
Mm-hmm.
and it just happened that I was there with them. And,
Oh, so you were there. Okay.
and it was a sweet, tender time to witness two sisters love on their mom as she died.
Now, you've said that a couple of times about being a sweet and tender moment. What about death would make you see it that way when some people, obviously not pleased with the idea of someone leaving, but what allows you to see it that way?
I think partly it's my faith and partly the circumstances. These two sisters just loved their mom. And she was elderly and was suffering and was ready to leave.
Okay.
And they were at peace with her going.
Okay.
And I think that makes a difference. You know, if the people who are saying goodbye to someone who's dying are ready and they feel like that it would be better for their loved one to not continue to live,
Okay.
the quality of life.
And it's just organically taking place.
Yes. And so that's what happened to this lady. And she was somebody who kind of embodied life. She was a spitfire of I really appreciated her.
Okay. So that same similarity with your dad.
Yeah. Yep. The organic, his body was dying. It was not
Okay.
going to function well. Things were going to get worse, and they were going to get worse quickly.
Okay.
And so we didn't want to see him suffer. The treatment would make life
Okay.
worse. So
I never thought about the idea of death being in that way, to be tender and to be sweet. And it's really just people loving on you in that transition. That is a good way to look at it.
I feel like that's what it was with my dad.
Okay.
It was sweet. It was tender. It wasn't fun.
Right. Oh,
We-
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah. No,
we
none of
did
that.
it.
But just to see it from a different perspective
Yeah.
than the other things that we think of when we think of death, that is an option, that can be seen that way. So now, my husband,
Mm.
how did you find out about Mark's situation that day and what was going on?
I'm not good at remembering things, but I'll tell you what I do remember. There are some things that just have stuck in
Okay.
my head. My husband, Mark, and I were going to Kroger. We were either in the parking lot and got a phone call
Okay.
or a text from Jerry.
Okay.
And
And you'll get to hear from Jerry later.
she's a good friend. And
Oops, I'm sorry. Jerry interviewed me. You already heard from her, kind of, but you're going to hear Jerry's story too. Go ahead. Sorry.
I can't remember if it was a message and then I called back or if I got the message right away, but I do remember a sinking feeling. Like sometimes you hear bad news and you're like, oh, that's not good. And sometimes you're like, it just gets you in the gut.
Okay.
And this was something that got me in the gut. And I can't tell you why. There was no rhyme or reason.
Oh, you didn't hear the details. It's just you had a sense that something was.
Well, I heard that. I think I heard that Mark had a heart attack. I don't know that I'd gotten more than that at that point. And
Okay.
And Jerry, there were many conversations, and they weren't all real long,
Right.
from what I remember. And what I remember was that Mark had a heart attack. Things were not clear.
Okay.
And I don't remember if I had known about your weekend ahead of time, that this was a weekend that you had intended
Yes.
to get together, and it was just to be together, be
Right.
fun, and that this had happened, and then that she was going to be leaving soon. And I just remember I was trying to figure out how I could go, and I couldn't figure out how I could
Okay.
go. And that was really bothersome for me.
Why was it bothersome?
Because your husband had a heart attack.
And you love me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to Chicago with just anybody. Yeah, this was a significant event in your life. And you were too far away.
And that is hard when someone you love, and so you could not be there. So what did you do?
Well, it took a long time for me to decide I could not be there. I just kept trying to figure out how could I make it work. And Jerry said, well, I'm leaving at this time and I'm going this way. And I, at that time, what year was that?
2017.
That's what I thought, because there were like 3 big hits. Mark's dad,
Yes.
my brother, your husband.
Right.
My heartbeat is abnormal.
I think so right now.
And so I remember going home. We finished up the story, went home, and I called you and talked to you.
You did.
I did. And you were telling me they had taken him into surgery.
Oh, okay.
And you didn't have a lot of time. I didn't want to talk to you a lot, but I did get to hear from you, your voice. Because that's the thing. When something like that happens, you're like, someone else can tell me this terrible thing happened, but I need to either see or hear
From my person directly.
Yes.
I don't want to hear anything.
Like,
I want to hear from them.
yeah,
where they're
you hear tones, you hear breathing,
Right.
you hear things that make some sense to you.
Mhm.
So we ended up going home, and I couldn't be still. I walked around the neighborhood
Really?
at night. It was dark outside, just waiting to hear back from you or
Mhm.
somebody.
Right. What was
Just
going
not
on?
being able to be there and know the next. Are things better? Are they stable? Are they
Right.
worse? Where are the kids?
It
Do
was
they
all-
know? Yeah,
Yes.
just all of the questions, and you can't. And even if I had been there, I still don't know that I would have known
But
a
just
lot of the
seeing me
answers.
and
But
just-
yeah,
right.
being able to be present so that I could do something, if it was just pass tissues or cry with you or
Right.
whatever. And then I remember coming back home, and Mark he didn't know what to say to me.
He was beside himself too, because we were such a close community.
And then I think I texted you. I got a text from somebody that said he didn't make it. And I was just like,
How is that possible?
yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah, how is that possible? And
And
what
other
does that
people-
mean?
Right.
That doesn't, yeah, it was like, he didn't make it. That doesn't say he died. It says he
there's
didn't make
still
it.
something my brain
Yeah.
does not
Not-
have to accept this part that he died. I remember seeing the words death, even not connected to Mark, was disturbing to me. I was at work one day and somebody said my phone died. I'm like, why we have to be saying the word die? Why those words just hollowed my core out, the word death, and not even wanting to text it or type it or to actually, somewhere in your mind, it
Say
was
it.
like you were killing them again by actually saying those words.
You can't deny that reality.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, when my Mark got electrocuted, I couldn't tell my kids that he got electrocuted. I said, your dad had an accident with electricity.
I remember you saying it like that.
Like,
And I was like, and I'm not asking no questions.
I just can't. Yeah, I'm like electrocution is like
That's
it
enough.
reminds me of that. You just once the reality is spoken or written,
You can't take
just
it back. You get that message. When did you see me? When you guys came up to Pennsylvania?
We came up. We didn't get to come up until the night before the funeral.
Okay. Did you go with us? Okay, so you get to the house. Was I there or were we out doing stuff? When
You were
came?
home. It was
Okay.
evening. People
What
were
was that drive like from Virginia to Pennsylvania?
long.
And what did you think when you saw me?
Why haven't I come up here before now?
Oh. The bonfire is missed and just things happening. Life just gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah. I felt bad for not being there.
But when you saw me,
I was so happy to see you, but
there were so many people in the house.
Oh, there was, yeah. And it was a good thing. I mean, that was a support network. It was not, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, there are too many people here. She needs space. I'm like, no, this is life-giving. And I feel like your community gives you, gives you space. They're attentive.
Oh, I would go back in the bedroom and leave y'all because it was like we were having this party for Mark and he wasn't there. And I was so glad that everybody was there and I could feel the love, but he was not there. And I couldn't take that big void of his absence, not coming in that room, not being part of that conversation. And I remember thinking, well, I don't want to leave the room because I'm going to make everybody upset. I'm like, Tina, I think everybody is upset because Mark is dead. Let's be clear about this. So I would just quietly get up and go back to my bedroom and just have a fit, cry, or do whatever. And when I was ready, and I know somebody come back, like knock on the door, and it was like, just let her go. And I thank everybody for giving me space to do that and then come back when I was ready. Because it was still, I knew it was happening, but I didn't want it to be happening. And there were times I didn't want to face that. I just want, like, we're having a bonfire. Everybody's here. We're doing this.
It's party time.
Right.
Mark will be home from work in a little while.
Exactly. But it didn't happen like that. What do you remember about, I don't know, his service, any of that?
Joy!
Oh my gosh. Yes. There was a song that went on a little bit too long. And it is now one of our themes. And when we think about Mark, we talk about joy. It becomes, that is a big time thing that we laugh about.
Yeah, that will make you smile.
That will make us smile. And thinking of that.
I remember Jesse's comments about your brother and impact he had, what an impact Mark had on Jesse.
Yes.
I was grateful to get to hear Mark's presence at church. I was grateful to get to hear, I don't know if it was at the funeral, I don't know when I heard that, of the witness he was at work while he was here.
Yes.
You were living there.
Yes. I think I called you. So I called Mark had taken a job here in Virginia. He was working as a government electrician. And I called his employer, his supervisor, to tell him he had passed and he was not going to come back to work. And oh my gosh, having to make phone calls, whether it's to life insurance, canceling a credit card, gut-wrenching to have to call and make a conversation about your spouse passing. But I had to call and tell his supervisor that he had died. And his supervisor said, oh, I thought you were calling to tell me that he wasn't coming back because I know he loved you so much. And I was afraid that when he came back to see you, he wasn't going to come back to work. And he said, but I want you to know that your husband talked about the Lord. And I was like, who? Because he was not very talking. Mark was low-key quiet like your husband. And then he was sharing his faith with people and doing stuff. And a lot of times I thought he went to church to accommodate me because his worship was different. How he expressed his faith was not as charismatic as myself, but it was his own. And hearing that gave me such comfort in knowing that that was something that he had taken as his own. None of them were at the service, but that was a conversation that his supervisor, I had with him and shared.
Yeah, I was grateful to hear that and get to be happy with you for that.
Yes.
That was an answer to prayer.
And so now you have to go back home. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You don't want to leave. I didn't want to leave. We had to leave. Other people were going to be, and when other people are leaving too, then you're like, somebody has to stay here. The feeling of
right.
you have to be supported, but your family, that's one of the things I also enjoyed then and every time that I'm around your family. Your family does a great job of loving each other well, in my opinion.
We call us the siblings. We go in hard.
Yeah, you do. You're passionate.
Yes.
You're all passionate and about each other, not in an inauthentic way. We fight,
yeah, we argue,
yeah.
but we still like each other.
Yeah.
Well, we live next door.
And so that I was...
you took comfort in knowing
yeah.
that, because Jesse stayed for 2 weeks, and then one of my first cousins stayed another 2 weeks after that. And so now...
Oh, and Jesse had a spreadsheet. I mean, taking care of you. Was like...
There was so much to organize and to do.
And it was not a chore. I mean, it was something that...
No, he did easily and lightly.
Yeah.
And to take that burden off of me, for him to be able to do that was huge. So now, a little over a year later, and I'm moving to Virginia.
A little over a year? Was it really?
Yep.
That sounds so fast.
No, Mark passed 2017. I started a job 2019.
Okay.
But
you've been talking about it.
Oh, yeah, because I was not staying in that house in Pennsylvania with all that snow and doing all that and nobody to do it. No, I needed to go. And when that door of opportunity happened for me to relocate, my sister Yolanda, we found a place for me to live. And all of my stuff came in from Pennsylvania to Virginia. How'd that go?
Well, that's another sibling thing. Like, she orchestrated the whole unpacking.
Mm-hmm.
So Jerry and I got to unpack this kitchen. I just was speechless that you were making such a huge move. I mean, you seemed okay. Everything, you seemed to be... I was happy that you were moving back to Virginia.
Yes.
I was very happy and close. So it was very good to see you, to get to spend time with you, to see how your heart was doing.
How was it compared? Because we've taken a lot of walks together. What did that look like over time?
I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to, but I feel like you were authentic. You didn't try to make things look better than they were. You were very honest. I appreciated knowing
how hard it was.
Yeah. I'm like, it's a scary thing.
Yes.
But also I don't know, I feel like I don't want to not know.
It's like the veil you want. It's like when the scary movies. It's like it's like the scary movie's coming and you want to open your fingers because you want to see what's going, but you don't really want to know. Because the reality is we don't stay. And how are you doing that? Because now with your mom, you were from the outside looking in. You are front and center stage now.
Yeah.
That is different.
Yeah, that is different. It's very different. That grief is very different.
Do you feel like the experience with your mom prepared you, or this is like still uncharted territory, being the friend of someone who lost their husband?
I think there are some similarities. I can remember some of the things that you said to me that gave me permission, not permission, but that acknowledgement. Like, yeah, this is a normal feeling.
No, you bring up a good point, because I think it was important to give my friends permission to talk about Mark.
Oh,
that didn't have to tiptoe around. And when I gave that permission, I think it opened up the ability to talk about him or share your version of this horrific experience, because we are all grieving together, instead of me feeling like by myself, just the kids and I, that everybody else, it did impact that. It felt like some of that weight was lifted off of me and other people were carrying it.
That's good. I'm glad. I think you did a really good job at letting people know you wanted to talk about Mark. There wasn't this, what do we say? What do we say? What do we not say? I never felt like there was a tentative, we might do the wrong thing. I felt like you were, you've always been a good communicator.
But you bring up a good point, that taboo, because we're all thinking about it.
Yes.
We're all concerned, like, how is she doing? How is she doing this? How is this happening? How is she existing without him? How difficult
How is she not dying?
Yes. And when we just say we can talk about it, it makes it easier because then that person's not alone. Now they've got to give you, that's me. Somebody else may not give that permission
Right.
to talk, and you don't want to thrust yourself
Right.
in there. But depending on that friendship, you may want to ask them because they may not even know how to say, because no one wants to talk about death. No one wants to speak about it. We want it to be this thing we want to brush under. The funeral's over. Everybody go back to their life and they've got to be fine. And I've checked the box. But there may be, what if I didn't speak? Do you think to ask to go, what are we going to do about this? Or is the closeness of that friendship? How do you get past it if that wasn't a thing?
If you hadn't brought it up first, I think my idea would have been, does she seem like she's okay?
Okay.
If she seems like she's okay, we'll follow her lead.
Okay.
If she doesn't seem like she's okay, if there's something that seems kind of amiss or worrisome,
Okay.
I would definitely want to broach that with you to see if you are okay. And I feel like in grief, sometimes we don't even have the words to know how to say, yes, I want to talk about him. I think some people might not have those words. They just might have those feelings. I know that frequently I have heard people say things and I'm like, that is exactly how I feel. I wouldn't have the words for it.
Okay, but you can resonate with that.
Yeah. And so I feel like it's important to pay attention. I think we have to follow someone else's lead in their grief and not tell them how to grieve.
Oh, gosh.
Or how not to grieve, or assuming.
Okay.
But I think when you're concerned, if you're gonna blow something out of proportion or do something wrong, let it be out of a heart of love and care for that person.
So better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
So you've got to be watching. You have to be attentive to your friend, and you're not leaving them. You're letting them know that they're not alone. That is huge.
And if you are invested in that friendship, it's huge for you too, because you want to know they're okay.
Okay.
Like if it's somebody that you don't ever,
casually.
Yeah,
You're not
that's
a
different.
one-on-one situation.
But then, like you had an experience in an airport or somewhere, we have to pay attention. People around us are grieving all over the place, and nobody's wearing a sign on their head. You can't tell.
Right. You make a good point, because grief, you look like the same person. Your brain, you may look a little disheveled, but I often think if my arm was decapitated, then you would look at me and go, oh, something's not.
Can I help you with something?
Yes. Can I offer that? But when I look the same, but everything else inside of me is no longer the same, it's hard to see that. So you have to see that person.
And I think that's why it's important to stay connected, because if, I know you do a good job of staying connected. I feel like you're a very intentional friend, which I appreciate because I'm not that.
You show up when you need to.
Listen, my arm. That when we stay connected, we're able to, lost my train of thought, but being connected is important, because then you can tell better.
Because you know what this person looks like outside of the situation, and going through this fog, going through this difficult time, you are literally unwinding yourself from someone you have spent your life with, and now you're trying to operate independently of that. If someone came to you and said, oh my gosh, my friend just lost their spouse, what would be some of the first things you think you would share with them, or advice?
Oh, advice. How are they doing? How do you feel like they're doing? Not necessarily how they're doing. It's how, I think, if it's the friend of someone, how is the friend doing? Because how they're doing is going to impact the person who lost someone. If you can't handle it,
Oh, so if they're you in that situation, if you can't handle the conversation, don't.
Yeah. I would be concerned and I would be praying for the person who lost their spouse. And I would want to encourage them to be available.
Oh, just being available. That is good. Sometimes just being in that space.
Yeah, it's not, you hear frequently, and I feel like I understand this better now. Don't ask what you can do. Get a specific,
yes.
Can I bring you dinner tonight?
Yes.
Not can I bring you dinner, or do you need some groceries?
How did you find out the specifics of that and know that better?
Well, a friend of mine said to me, specifically, she asked, how are you doing today? And that was so helpful because I could answer that. When people will ask, how are you doing? I'm like, I don't know how I'm doing. I'm okay.
And so let me say this. That part, unfortunately, is because your mom passed recently. And the brain trying to manage the loss of this person, for me and other people I've spoken with, that fog and ability to think past sometimes the moment is too hard. So that's good. Ask them, can I bring you dinner tonight and this is the dish? Can I go grocery shopping for you today to buy this? Because if they have to think outside of that, they may just say, I don't know, or end the call when they really do need something, but their brain cannot go past so far. So you've got to make it easy to be able to help them. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember even my husband called and said, do you need something from Lidl's? I'm at Lidl's. No, we don't need anything at Lidl's. And then like an hour and a half later, I'm like, oh yeah, we need stuff from Lidl's. And understanding that your brain just is not working. You don't have the capacity.
Right.
It doesn't make sense because 2 weeks ago I could do this. And now I can't. Giving yourself permission. And then the person who's grieving, to assure them that, well, that's okay. Call me up later again. If you think of it, if you think of something, give them permission. Not permission.
No, I
be
think
available enough so that, they don't feel awkward, because you're feeling awkward dealing with your grief. Your body is doing stuff that doesn't make any sense, and you can't
process all that.
You can't process it all, but it doesn't make sense that you can't process it. I mean, it's like you said, it's all internal. If it was a broken leg or I had stitches, it would make sense even to me why this is difficult.
Right.
But yeah, and then you just want to get past it sometimes too. Like, can we skip over this?
Could we skip over this?
Skip over this part?
Okay, that would be great. That would be great. Any final thoughts, Chris?
Grief is hard. It is uncomfortable. It is awkward. It is part of living and loving. And it's something that there's value in. And skipping over it is detrimental. And it is the shortcut that takes longer. But I feel like, we don't, as a culture, we don't understand the significance and the value in grieving. I know I don't I just feel like, let's be done with this now. My mom had dementia, and I feel like I've already done my grieving, but this is a whole new level
in her absence.
With her absence, and
you cared for her daily, intimately. That was front and center stage in a different way than out of any of the other people that have passed.
Yeah.
And then do you feel like that has a cumulative process as you're caring for your mother, all these other people that have passed, some of that resonates and comes up front center too?
It highlighted how different it was for me. I feel like, it just made it was very different. The thing that I consumed my life ended. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? How do I go back to being who I was before this began?
But is that possible?
Yeah, no, you can't.
Right.
But in my mind, I'm like,
this is where we pick up at.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That's where I stopped doing that. Now we'll start doing that again.
And it's just been how long since your mom passed?
A little over a month.
And how is that going for you right now?
It sucks.
Yes.
Some days it's good. Some days it's harder. Sneaks up on you.
sneaks up on you. It does. And you could be in the midst of just doing the simplest thing, and out of nowhere, I feel like it's a wave that can just hit you. It's like, wow, there we go. Do you give into that, or do you try to fight it off?
Both.
Okay.
Depends on where I am.
Okay.
And what I need to do.
Right.
And sometimes it's nice. It ends with a relief, kind of.
It does, because now that heavy, and that's why I asked. When I try to just lean into it, it feels like it washes over me, and it's a healing process, sort of releasing all that energy, all the tears, all those feelings. But when I spend time fighting it or trying to escape it, I feel like I'm just going to give into the grief. I don't have time to be pushing this away because it's going to get me. So I might as well, I feel like it is part of that healing work that does when we release that, and it's just some letting it go. So the conversations we had, from either walking at Fort Monroe or me having physical therapy and being able to check in with you, those were not easy conversations. What made you stay with that and not run away and go, oh, it's been 2 years since our husband died. Why don't she stop about that? Why none of that? Never crossed your mind.
Crossed my mind, because you're slow. No, I don't know that I ever felt like that was appropriate, or
Okay.
Those things just seem, the way you explain them, well, I care about you. I want to know. And if that's how things are, I want to know that.
Okay.
But your ability to communicate your thoughts and what grief was like for you, I felt like this is significant. I need to pay attention to this. And this is part of, it's part of who you are now.
Right.
And I want to know who you are now. I didn't know you as Tina. I only knew you as Tina and Mark.
Okay.
One of the things I remember when Mark died was, it was like, how in the world? I was in the car with you headed to Chicago. How will you survive? How can you be
just Tina?
I'm like, even when I would think about you, it was always like Christina, Tina and Mark.
Right.
Mark and Tina. Actually, it was always Mark and Tina.
Yes.
And Tina. Yeah, that was significant for me. And I think that's one of the reasons I stuck with it, because in my mind, how can you survive that?
Right. That is something I would wake up that first year every day going, I
remember you saying this.
I'm alive. I won the life lottery. I remember looking up statistics about how many people die a day. I remember thinking how random the ability to still get up. I remember struggling with, why make a plan? I may not win the life lottery tomorrow. Why do these different things? And it was helpful for those conversations for my friends to give me space to talk, to be able to share, and never give me a timeline to say, okay, it's been enough of this. But I am mindful that there are some people that may not have somebody to talk to. They may not have friends that are being patient with them. They may not have a community that is supporting them. And for that, I encourage you to reach out. There are groups of widow and widowers. Reach out to a therapist, journal, be a part of this community. There's a Facebook group page with people that you can talk to share stories. Reach out and find those safe spaces that you need for your healing, to be able to tell your story and to work on your hope and be an encouragement to yourself. Don't stifle it alone. It's too much sometimes to just take it all by yourself. And being with someone and knowing you're not alone is important. And I thank you for not running away and sticking for every conversation, as we're still having today, as far as what that looks like. Thank you, Chris.
It's my pleasure. I enjoy it.
She says.
I think, I feel like also seeing other people survive that gives me hope. in a morbid kind of way that
Right.
if that happens to me, A, I'm going to know who I'm going to call, and B, it's a possibility when you see other people survive, succeed, even in other
It's
areas
like,
of
okay,
life.
I couldn't keep living because it does. I did not know.
I remember you saying that you would wake up like, I'm alive today. Okay, I guess I got to get up now. And like
Yes.
You said a lot of things. I paid a lot of attention.
And it was raw, and it has been raw and edgy.
Well, I think it's a sacred space. I mean, that is not something to trifle with.
What do you mean by that?
I feel like that's, you nearly died.
Okay.
When Mark died.
Yes.
You nearly died. Those were your thoughts.
In my head.
To live. Grieving is a part of learning to live through that. And so, that was.
There was so much of me that I did not go back to work for 3 months. I didn't know what life looked like because him and I together was life.
Yeah, exactly. There is no life now.
And what does that look like? And it did feel like that for so long. And being okay to feel like that and not to be made ashamed that that's how it felt.
Or people to be like, is she going to do something serious and crazy?
Yes, it doesn't mean that I'm going to take my life. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do some harm. I am aching.
There's a pain that I can't express.
No, that is unconsolable. And just.
I think that is significant to be a friend who can sit in the unconsolable. That's not a fun place for a friend. Like, I want to help. I want to do something to make it better. You cannot. And being okay in that awkward, uncomfortable spot with somebody.
That is a lot.
And I appreciate you sharing that awkward. I'm like, that's not easy to do, to be that vulnerable.
No. But for me, I don't think my healing would have come if I didn't release it. Going back to that wave of grief coming on you, that I couldn't stomach it all inside. That was part of me releasing and other people helping me carry it. But I realized if I didn't tell them I needed you to carry this, they wouldn't carry it. But as soon as I let them know what I needed carrying, they would jump in and do that. But if I was acting like everything was okay and I didn't need help or anything, they'd be like, well, I guess she's fine. Guess she don't need no help. Oh, no, we got the white flag. We is waving it. I mean, I need help here. I need help with this. I need help with that. And when people say, I can do something for you, here you go when I can figure it out. But I can tell you this. If you tell somebody grieving you're going to do something for them, you better do it. You committed, you better figure out how you're going to make that happen and not back out, because they have given you all their energy to count on you doing it, and you have to show up. Because now when you don't show up, it's like something else.
Another grief.
Yes. Like, I'm just going to do this by myself. I don't need to continue asking people to do something for me. This is hard enough. That is true. That is really true. This has been a good conversation.
Thanks. It has. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, look at that. Thank you for being with us here today. Talk to you soon. I just wrapped up a conversation with my friend Chris Wissmann. And I love how she brought her whole heart to that conversation. I love how she talked about death being sweet and being there with someone and being that friend. I love how she was willing to open up and share her dad's passing, being there for her mom who was a widow, and the things in life that have impacted her, and her ability to be there during the grit of life and realizing that those relationships that we have are made in those difficult times and not to run away. Chris and I talked about so much, and there's one other thing I want to share that we didn't get a chance to get into. That when Chris and her husband Mark were at my house, I actually brought them back into the bedroom because her husband's name is Mark they're about the same built, my husband. And I felt good to be able to leave them in the closet and to be able to take some items back that I knew my husband couldn't wear anymore. And me going back and forth in that closet was just too difficult. And it gave me such comfort when those clothes left with them and knowing that they were gone and I didn't have to pick through them myself and go through that anguish. Having the friends that I have in my life have been a true gift, and I am so grateful. And I encourage you again, if you don't have friends, if you feel like you're alone, to reach out to a community, reach out to people, because this is a difficult journey that you're on, but it is something that you can survive. It is something that you can heal. It is something that you can find encouragement and you can find hope in. You create your hood as you're going through this experience. Reach out to me and other people. We'll talk to you again soon. Have a good day.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.